There's a powerful moment in every human connection, a moment when words don't matter anymore, when silence becomes the language of the soul. And in that silence, someone who's avoidant is waiting, not for a text, not for a chase, but for a sign. They're waiting to feel something real, not pressure, not expectation, but peace. They're waiting to feel that your presence doesn't demand, it invites, that your love doesn't chase, it centers. You see, avoidant individuals have learned to survive by control, by retreating before they get hurt. Their nervous system is wired for distance. But the truth is, distance is not what they desire. What they truly want is safety, emotional safety that says, you're free to come close and you're free to breathe. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, that's the moment they feel your worth. The moment you let go of the need for them to respond, that's when they start to notice your energy. You become the calm in their storm. Love, at its highest level, is not about pursuit. It's about embodiment. It's not about getting them to open up. It's about becoming so grounded, so aligned, so divinely certain of your own value that your very energy whispers, you're safe here. When you hold that kind of vibration, you don't need to send them a message. Your soul already has, because energy speaks long before words ever do. And maybe right now they're thinking about you. They won't say it, they won't show it, but their heart feels the pull. They're waiting for a sign, not that you need them, but that you're not lost without them. They're waiting to sense your peace, your purpose, your wholeness. So stop focusing on how to make them return. Instead, focus on becoming someone they can return to. Someone who doesn't just love, but embodies love. Someone whose strength says, I honor your space, but I'll keep my heart open. This is the divine dance of connection, not control, not fear, but truth. When your energy rises from need to presence, from fear to faith, from waiting to being, that's the sign they've been waiting for, because in that moment, they finally feel something they haven't felt in years. Safety in love. And that's when the walls begin to crumble. You are not here to fix anyone. You are here to remind them what real love feels like. Patient, grounded, unwavering. So stand tall, walk with peace. Let your energy do the speaking. Because the sign they're waiting for is the calm, radiant power of you. The avoidant silence often feels like rejection, but in truth, it's rarely about you. It's about their inner world, a landscape shaped by fear, self-protection, and emotional survival. When they go quiet, when they pull away, what they're really doing is testing the environment. They're scanning for safety, searching for proof that vulnerability won't lead to pain again. To the avoidant, silence isn't absence. It's a defense mechanism. They've learned that retreat keeps them safe, that distance means control. Yet behind that distance, their heart still watches, still wonders, still waits for a sign that it's safe to come closer. What most people misunderstand about avoidance is that their withdrawal isn't a lack of care. It's a learned behavior, a survival pattern rooted in old wounds. Maybe they grew up in spaces where love felt conditional, where expressing needs led to rejection, where intimacy was unpredictable, sometimes comforting, sometimes overwhelming. So, they built walls, not because they wanted to block love out, but because it was the only way they knew how to keep themselves from breaking again. Their silence is the echo of that past. It's their armor. When you understand that, you stop taking their distance personally. You start to see the human behind the behavior, someone trying to feel safe, even if their way of doing it seems cold or confusing. They're not rejecting you. They're protecting themselves from a kind of pain that runs deep, a pain that says, if I let someone in, I might lose control again. But here's the truth. Even while they're protecting themselves, they're also longing for connection. They want to feel close, but they fear being consumed. They want to trust, but they've been disappointed. So they wait, not consciously, but instinctively, for a sign that you're different. That sign doesn't come through words alone. It comes through energy, consistency, patience. It comes through the moments when you don't chase their silence with panic, but instead hold your peace. It comes through the moments when you don't punish them for retreating, but stay anchored in your own emotional center. When you do that, they begin to feel something they're not used to, safety without pressure. And for an avoidant, that's the ultimate invitation. They need to sense that your presence is steady, not consuming, that your love doesn't demand closeness, but allows it, because their system is wired to expect that love equals loss of self. They've associated connection with control. So when they meet someone who embodies calm strength, someone who doesn't collapse into neediness or react with resentment, it confuses and disarms them. It becomes the beginning of trust. Their silence then becomes the testing ground. It's the quiet moment between fear and faith. They're watching to see if your energy shifts. Will you react with desperation? Will you disappear? Or will you remain stable, like a lighthouse in their storm? When you stand still in love, not chasing, not withdrawing, but radiating calm, you send the signal their nervous system craves: safety. That's why silence doesn't mean they're gone. It means they're waiting. They're observing if this love will suffocate or liberate them, if it will demand or allow. And every time you respond with patience instead of panic, you teach them that connection doesn't have to equal chaos. You show them that closeness can coexist with freedom. It's in these quiet spaces that transformation begins. The avoidant starts to feel the truth. They can breathe near you. And the moment they realize that, their silence becomes softer, their energy shifts, and a doorway opens. Not because you forced it, but because you created safety through stillness. Their silence wasn't rejection. It was their way of saying, show me it's safe to come home. Energy is the language the avoidant understands best. Long before you speak, they're reading you, not through your words, but through the frequency of your presence. Every tone, every expression, every pause carries meaning. They don't just listen to what you say. They feel who you are. Because for someone who's learned to survive by withdrawing, safety isn't proven through declarations. It's sensed through energy. That's why the avoidant often appears distant when words of love are spoken, but becomes quietly responsive when they sense emotional alignment and calm. They trust energy, not promises. They follow vibration, not persuasion. Imagine how many times they've heard people say, I'll never hurt you, only to experience the opposite. Their nervous system doesn't believe words anymore. It believes consistency. It believes tone. It believes how you show up when you don't get what you want, when you speak softly, when you don't chase their silence, when your energy remains grounded in compassion instead of need. That's when they start to notice. It's not your message that reaches them. It's your state. Your energy tells them whether you're safe, stable, and capable of holding space for their fear. This is why desperation never works with an avoidant. The more your energy becomes anxious, the more their walls rise. It's not because they're trying to punish you. It's because their body interprets that urgency as danger. They feel pressured, and pressure for them equals pain. The moment they sense you need them to respond, they pull away. Not to hurt you, boo. To regain control. On the other hand, when your energy is calm, when it says, I'm not here to chase you, I'm here to understand you, their defenses start to loosen. They start to feel safe enough to approach. Energy in relationships is like a frequency that either triggers fear or invites openness. When you lead with fear, fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, they sense it instantly. Even if your words are kind, your energy betrays your insecurity. But when you align yourself with love, true, grounded, non-attached love, it radiates through everything you do. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to get them back, but because your peace speaks louder than any attempt at control. The avoidant is unconsciously drawn to people who hold emotional steadiness. That steadiness feels like home to a nervous system that's been trained to expect chaos. When your energy says, you're safe here, they slowly begin to rewire their associations with connection. Instead of bracing for disappointment, they start to relax into presence. That's the moment they begin to see you not as another potential source of pain, but as a safe signal in a world that often feels too demanding. It's important to realize that your words are just surface signals, but your energy is the real communication. The avoidant notices the subtle things, the pause before you reply, the sigh after they withdraw, the tone that shifts when they don't meet your expectations. These little cues speak volumes to them. When they sense judgment or emotional instability, they retreat. But when they feel neutrality, compassion without expectation, they inch closer. Your ability to stay emotionally centered becomes the bridge to their trust. That's why transformation begins with your inner work, not your outer actions. The energy you carry is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. If you're grounded, confident, and at peace, you send the message, I don't need you to heal me, I'm already whole. That message is powerful. It disarms their fear because it removes the unspoken pressure to fix or complete you. When you embody wholeness, they can finally breathe around you. So every time you interact with someone avoidant, remember, they're not reacting to your words. They're responding to your energy. If you speak love but carry fear, they'll sense the fear. But if you say nothing and radiate peace, they'll feel the love. The avoidant doesn't trust the noise. They trust the silence that feels safe. And when your silence carries the vibration of acceptance, that becomes the sign they've been waiting for all along. The avoidant's greatest paradox is that they crave certainty while fiercely protecting their independence. Deep inside, they want to trust love, to surrender to it, to rest in it. But the moment they feel that love might control or confine them, their survival instincts activate. They've learned to equate closeness with danger and vulnerability with loss of autonomy. It's not that they don't want connection, it's that they want connection that doesn't demand they give up who they are. They long for emotional grounding, but only if it allows them to breathe freely. What they truly desire is a relationship where they can be seen and accepted without being overwhelmed. This is why so many people misunderstand them. When they pull away, others assume they don't care, but often it's the opposite. They care so much that the intensity terrifies them. Their nervous system can't tell the difference between love and threat because for most of their life, the two were intertwined. They've lived in emotional unpredictability, where closeness sometimes brought warmth and other times brought pain. So now, when love feels too strong or too demanding, they retreat, not to reject, but to regulate. Certainty for them doesn't mean knowing what will happen next. It means knowing they're emotionally safe no matter what happens. It's the assurance that they won't be criticized for needing space, that their silence won't be met with anger, and that their independence won't cost them love. They need to know that you're not trying to fix them, change them, or make them fit into your rhythm. They need to know that you respect their pace. When they feel that, their guard begins to soften because they realize love can exist without control. This kind of love requires patience, a calm, mature patience that isn't passive, but intentional. It means you hold your ground without trying to hold them hostage. It means you communicate not through urgency, but through steadiness. When you can say, through your energy and your actions, you're free to be you, and I'm not going anywhere, you become the certainty they've always needed but never found. They start to associate love with freedom, not fear. And that's where transformation happens, not through pressure, but through presence. When you embody emotional consistency, they begin to test less and trust more. They start to open slowly, like a flower that's learning sunlight isn't dangerous. Every calm interaction, every grounded response, every moment of empathy builds a new association in their mind. Closeness doesn't have to mean loss of control. This realization allows them to step into intimacy at their own pace, which is the only way it can last. Avoidants don't need grand gestures. They need emotional predictability. They want to know that if they share something vulnerable, it won't be used against them. They want to know that if they ask for space, you won't interpret it as rejection. And when they sense that your love remains steady even through their withdrawal, that's when they begin to relax into the relationship. It's the moment they start to believe that love can coexist with individuality. Your role isn't to pull them closer, but to create a space so inviting, so calm, that they naturally lean in. When you stop chasing certainty through their behavior and start embodying it yourself, you become the anchor in their storm. Your grounded presence becomes their emotional reference point, the sign that safety doesn't mean suffocation. Over time, the avoidant learns to replace control with trust. They realize they don't have to protect themselves from love because love, when it's healthy, doesn't take, it allows. And when they finally feel that, they begin to participate in connection in a new way. They stop running not because they've been convinced to stay, but because for the first time, it feels safe to. Your inner alignment is the foundation of the energy you bring into any relationship, especially with an avoidant partner. When you're emotionally balanced, centered, and connected to your own worth, Your presence becomes magnetic. It communicates safety without needing to say a word. The avoidant doesn't respond to pressure, persuasion, or emotional volatility. They respond to calm strength. They're constantly scanning for cues, consciously or not, that tell them whether it's safe to let their guard down. Your energy, therefore, becomes the signal their nervous system reads. If you're grounded, patient, and emotionally clear, you become the safe space they've been unconsciously waiting for. Avoidants have spent most of their lives surrounded by unpredictability. Their childhoods may have been full of mixed messages. Love that appeared and disappeared, warmth that turned into withdrawal, connection followed by criticism. As adults, they learn to control what they can, their distance. They rely on space to feel safe because closeness has often meant chaos. When they sense emotional turbulence in someone else, it triggers an old memory. I'm not safe here. But when they encounter someone whose inner world is steady, who doesn't get lost in reactivity, their system starts to calm. They begin to feel something unfamiliar, peace in connection. That's why inner alignment isn't just a personal practice. It's a relational message. The avoidant doesn't hear "I love you" through words alone. They feel it when your energy is consistent, when you stay emotionally stable, even when they pull back. You're teaching them something profound, that love doesn't always come with chaos, that closeness can feel spacious. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. Learning to respond instead of react, to hold presence instead of panic. Your alignment tells them that you're not dependent on their behavior for your sense of peace. And that is deeply attractive to an avoidant. They've spent so long equating love with loss of control that when they meet someone who is self-regulated, it rewrites their inner script. Suddenly, love doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like freedom. They can exhale around you because your presence doesn't demand, it invites. You're not trying to fix them, convince them, or chase them. You're simply being loved, not performing it. That stillness, that quiet strength, speaks louder than any effort ever could. Inner alignment also means knowing that your worth isn't dependent on their closeness. You stop looking to them to validate your value. You stop making their distance mean something about you. Instead, you stay anchored in self-respect. That energy changes everything. Because when you no longer take their withdrawal personally, you respond with understanding instead of hurt, patience instead of panic. And every time you do, their nervous system receives a new message. This connection doesn't threaten me. When your inner world is calm, you create a container that can hold both your emotions and theirs. You become the safe polarity to their fear of engulfment. That doesn't mean you tolerate avoidance indefinitely or shrink yourself to accommodate it. It means you embody emotional maturity. You don't mirror their shutdown with your own. You lead energetically by example. Your stability becomes the invitation for them to rise to the same level of emotional presence. In the presence of inner alignment, love stops being a battlefield and becomes a sanctuary. The avoidant slowly learns that connection doesn't have to mean control. They start to feel drawn to the energy of peace because it's something their system has craved but never trusted. Your energy begins to reprogram the dynamic, not through force but through resonance. When you operate from this place of alignment, you don't chase, you attract. You don't demand change, you inspire it. And as your calm becomes their mirror, they begin to meet you with the same steadiness they once feared. That's the quiet power of alignment. It transforms the relationship without needing to control it. In your stillness, they finally find safety. In your peace, they finally find permission to open. Patience is one of the most underestimated expressions of love. And for someone with avoidant tendencies, it is the most powerful one. An avoidant doesn't open up through pressure or persuasion. They unfold slowly, quietly, and cautiously. Their heart has learned that closeness often comes with a cost, so they move through love like someone walking on thin ice, testing each step before committing their full weight. In this delicate process, your patience becomes their proof of safety. Every time you hold your ground without demanding progress, you communicate something that their nervous system desperately needs to hear. You are safe to go at your own pace. Avoidants are not immune to love. They are simply terrified of it. They associate intimacy with overwhelm because somewhere in their past, being close to someone meant losing control or being emotionally hurt. So when you approach them with urgency, asking for reassurance, chasing answers, or needing constant validation, It doesn't make them feel closer, it makes them retreat. They begin to feel suffocated by the expectation of emotional speed. What they need instead is space to regulate, time to trust, and the freedom to come forward when they feel ready. Patience gives them all of that. It tells them that love doesn't have to be rushed to be real. Patience isn't about waiting passively, it's an active strength. It means staying grounded in your own peace, even when their silence feels confusing. It means believing in the connection without trying to force its timing. Patience is the energy of someone who knows that love built on control collapses, but love built on trust expands. When you practice patience with an avoidant, you show them that love can coexist with freedom. You teach them that connection doesn't have to mean losing themselves. This doesn't mean tolerating emotional neglect or allowing avoidance to become an excuse for distance. It means learning to respond from understanding instead of reaction. When they retreat, your patience becomes the reminder that you are not going anywhere, not out of neediness, but out of calm confidence. You don't chase, you don't punish, you don't withdraw to match their distance. You stay steady, embodying the emotional maturity that their heart has never felt safe enough to trust before. Every moment of patience builds emotional safety. The avoidant begins to realize that they can be imperfect, uncertain, even silent, and still not lose your presence. That realization heals something ancient in them. It rewrites the story that love is conditional. Over time, they begin to associate your presence with peace, not pressure. The walls they built out of fear start to soften, not because you forced them to, but because you stayed when it was easier to leave. You showed them that love doesn't threaten, it supports. Patience also means holding faith in the unseen. The avoidant might not show their emotions openly, but that doesn't mean they're not feeling them. Their processing happens internally. They think, they reflect, they test your consistency. Your patience allows them to experience love in a way that feels safe enough to explore, to trust, and eventually to reciprocate. It's in your calm that they find the courage to risk closeness again. When you lead with patience, you embody the higher principle of love. That real connection is not about control, it's about surrender. You're not trying to make them change, you're offering an environment where change becomes possible. You hold space for their growth while staying anchored in your own worth. You show them that they don't have to rush healing to be loved, and in that realization, they begin to soften toward both you and themselves. Patience is not weakness, it's spiritual strength. It's what allows love to breathe. For the avoidant, your patience becomes their first experience of love without fear. Love that doesn't chase, doesn't judge, doesn't demand, and in the stillness of your patience, something extraordinary happens. Their defenses lower, their heart begins to trust, and they finally feel safe enough to step forward. The sign the avoidant is truly waiting for is not a grand gesture, a heartfelt message, or a sudden confession of love. It's your energy of unwavering self-worth. It's the quiet, grounded confidence that says, I am whole, even if you're unsure. Avoidants are drawn to people who embody stability, not because they consciously seek it, but because their nervous system craves it. They want to feel close to someone who doesn't crumble under distance, who doesn't interpret their space as rejection, and who doesn't try to earn love through proving. When you stop chasing and start embodying love, when your sense of worth is no longer dependent on their response, that becomes the signal they've been unconsciously waiting for. Avoidants are hypersensitive to emotional energy. They can feel when someone is anxious for approval or when love is coming from fear rather than fullness. The moment they sense that your peace is tied to their behavior, their instincts tell them to withdraw. Not because they don't care, but because they equate that kind of attachment with pressure and control. What disarms them isn't pursuit, it's presence. When your energy says, I'm at peace within myself, it tells them that your love is safe. It doesn't need to dominate, it simply exists. True self-worth radiates without effort. It's in your posture, your tone, your boundaries, your consistency. It's when you can say no without anger and yes without fear. It's when you know that love is not something you have to beg for. It's something you become. The avoidant finds comfort in this energy because it removes the hidden demand to perform. They don't have to be perfect to be loved. And they don't have to give up their autonomy to stay close. You teach them that love can feel free, not confining. And that realization starts to rewire their understanding of connection. When you hold strong self-worth, you stop reacting to their distance with panic. You stop overanalyzing every silence. Instead, you lean into trust, not blind trust in them, but deep trust in yourself. You know that whatever happens, you'll be okay. This inner confidence creates a frequency of emotional safety that the avoidant feels instinctively. Your steadiness tells them, you're allowed to come and go, but this connection is built on peace, not pressure. And that's when something inside them begins to shift. They start to feel drawn toward your calm rather than threatened by it. It's ironic, but the moment you no longer need them to validate your worth is often the moment they start to feel magnetized to you. Your energy becomes a mirror that reflects back their own hidden longing to love without fear, to connect without control. The avoidant's greatest fear is losing themselves in a relationship. But when they meet someone who stands firm in their own identity, that fear dissolves. You show them that two people can stand close without one collapsing into the other. This kind of self-worth doesn't come from pride, it comes from presence. It's a deep knowing that love is abundant, not scarce. It's understanding that connection flows naturally when both people feel safe in their individuality. When you embody this, you no longer chase what runs. You attract what's ready. Your calm energy becomes an invitation for the avoidant to lay down their armor, because for the first time, love doesn't feel like surrender. It feels like safety. Your self-worth becomes the silent sign that says everything they need to hear. I see you, I honor your space, and I am whole, whether you step closer or stay away. That message reaches deeper than any words ever could. It tells their heart that love isn't a trap, it's a choice. And slowly, they begin to realize that they can choose closeness without losing themselves. The avoidant doesn't need to be convinced, persuaded, or saved. What they need is to feel that love doesn't demand their compliance. It simply offers presence. Your self-worth is the bridge between their fear and their desire for connection. When you embody it, you become the signal their soul recognizes. Love that doesn't chase, love that doesn't control, love that simply is. And that's the sign they've been waiting for all along. In the end, remember this. Love isn't about chasing or fixing. It's about becoming. The avoidant isn't waiting for your words. They're waiting for your energy to show them that love can feel safe, steady, and free. When you rise into your highest self, when you lead with peace instead of fear, you don't just heal the relationship. You awaken something divine within both of you. So keep growing, keep grounding, and let your calm be the sign that love still believes in connection. Thank you for listening, for showing up with heart, and for choosing to become the kind of love the world needs more of.